Okay, so this is how I've created a new user. I've run the script add user.bat, and I've selected a management user. I've given the username as Faiz, given a password with special characters and numbers, and then I've added, and the users are created in both standalone server and the domain server, and I do enter. So my user is created FAIZ. Okay. Now how do I create servers for a domain mode? So what I do is, since we don't have two physical boxes to work with, so I'll just simulate two boxes. Say suppose we have machine 1. We want to create a domain on machine 1, and we want to create a domain on machine 2. So this is the location of, say, machine 2. So we have machine 1 and we have machine 2. What we will do is we'll copy the domain configuration. We'll copy the domain configuration on machine 1, and we'll copy the domain configuration on machine 2. So my machine 1 is ready with its domain configuration, and my machine 2 also has a particular domain configuration. So both of them have a domain configuration, right? Both of them are having a domain configuration. However, since we are starting on the same box, the domain controller and the host controllers on the same box, then in that case, the IP address of the servers should be different, right? The IP address of the servers should be different. How do we change the IP address of the servers? Okay, so let's come back. So this is my EAP instance, and this is where on machine 1 I'm going to start my domain controller. So let's look at the configuration files. So what configuration files I have here? I have a domain.xml file which is similar to a standalone.xml file, in which it has the extensions and the subsystems and all of that. It has got extensions, it has got system profiles, and it has got profiles, right? The 4 profiles that we discussed, right? And it has got the 4 interfaces, it has got socket bindings, right? These socket bindings it has, and it also has server groups. So we'll look into server groups tomorrow, what server groups are and how we configure server groups. So these are the details in your domain.xml file. Now, since we are going to start a domain controller from machine 1, so we will use a host master. We will use a host master. So what does a host file contain? What is there in a host file? You have the management option, the security option, right? What is the management realm, and which port number by which you can, manage the servers, the domain controller you can log in. And this is the important element. So if you're starting your domain controller on machine 1, you're starting a domain, controller on machine 1, then your host master should have the domain controller as local. When you say local, which means that from this domain on this machine, you are starting your domain controller. You're starting a domain controller on this machine. This is what you mean. Then on machine 2, you're starting another domain, you're going to start your host controllers on machine 2. You're going to start your host controller. So domain.xml file remains the same, but you're going to use a host slave. You're going to use a host slave.xml file. So it is similar. You have management interface, in addition to that, you have the domain controller. Inside domain controller, you have the remote host address your uh, where your domain controller is going to run on, right? So since it is running locally, everything will be running locally. We can give 127.0.0.1. This is where our domain controller is running, and the port number, on what port number it is going to run. That also we have to specify on what port number, right? Basically, it is like this. Basically, it is like this. You have machine 1 here, and you have machine 2 here, machine 2 here. So you have a domain.xml file on machine 1, and you have a host master.xml file. Host master.xml file, and you have a host-slave.xml file. You don't even need the domain.xml. And in the host slave, what do you have? In the host master, you say domain controller is local. You say your domain controller is local. That means it is this machine will act as a machine on which your domain controller is going to run on. And on this machine, what do you say? You say that this is where your host will 10, 2, 3, 4, something, for example. This is where your server is going to run on, and this is the port number your server is going to run on, right? So you give this configuration here, domain controller, and what is the IP address of this box? It is 10.2.3.4. So that this is the configuration, so that when your domain controller process will start, and here your host controller will start. Your host controller will use this IP address and the port number to connect to your domain controller. And how will it know that it has to connect to this domain controller? Through its host slave.xml file. So are you clear with this? Is everybody clear with this? Yusuf, are you clear with this? Okay, great. What about you, Manoj? Cool. Vivek?
Yeah, I have a doubt like
Sure.
for host controller, the file is hostslave.xml, right? The
Exactly.
main configuration.
Exactly.
And from here, host controller, we'll be starting the servers, right?
Uh,
Whatever the servers will be in the host controller, right?
yeah.
Or
So yeah, the domain controller you will be used to start the servers on on the other machine using the host controller.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you.
show the lab, and maybe it will be clear once you see the labs. So this is what we are trying to simulate. Two machines. Two machines. One machine will start a domain controller. Other machine will start the host controller. Right. Okay. So how do we do that? Okay, I have already one started. So what I'm going to do now is just keep yourself on mute, please. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start my domain.bat, and I'll give the location the way I started the standalone server. I'll start a domain server this time, and this time I'm going to give the address of. So first I'm going to start the domain controller running on machine 1. I'll give the address of machine 1 here. I will not change any address, anything right now. Everything we are doing just to make you understand, I'll make it very simple and we'll start everything locally. But if you have two machines where you can see all this, then it will be good if you can see. So here I'm using star host master. So on machine 1, I'm starting my domain controller. This will start my domain controller process. Although it is saying starting host controller, but it is not host controller. Why? Although it is saying starting host controller, but it is not host controller. Why is that? Just a minute. I have something else running on 9990. Okay, let me check what it is. So although it is saying starting a host controller process, but it is not actually a host controller process. Why? Because we are passing the host master configuration. We are passing the host master configuration, and in the host master, we have defined the domain controller as local. So when we define the domain controller as local, that host controller is actually a domain controller. Similarly, in the host slave, we specify the address of the domain controller. Okay, 2868. So something is running on 2868. Let me see what it is. 2868. What is 2868?
So, Faisal,
Uh-huh.
when you start the host controller, then it comes when you start the server, the error comes like not error. It shows like host controller is started.
Yeah. For me, some network, just a minute. For me, some network service is running on 2868, which is preventing my Jboss EAP instance to start on 9990. Okay, it's a system service, so I cannot change it. NVIDIA is used for what? Can I stop it?
Otherwise, kill it.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So
Yeah.
now, yeah, now I should be able to start because some other system process was running on that port number 9990. So I will start it again. All kinds of weird problems, man. So this time my host control is going to start and it is going to listen on 9990. But what is the port number? What is the port number on which your host controller is going to connect to the domain controller? Anybody?
Is it 4 nines?
Yes, very good. It's going to be 4 nines. Yes, very good. Because we have this 4 nines here. So in host master, my Jboss management native port is 4 nines, right? So here I come to the host slave. I come to the host slave and basically now I'm going to start my slave servers. But before I start, let me log in and see if I'm able to log into my domain controller. HTTP 127.0.0.19990/console. FAIZ tab at the rate July 2K16. I'm going to log in. So I have logged in, but I don't have any servers, right? In my domain controller, I have nothing. No servers defined in the master, right? Do I have anything? Banuj, this is there already here in the host master. In the host master, we have defined the interface management. Interface management for the management realm, HTTP interface. And here the port number is 9990. So this is defined in our host master. The management interface. If you want to change it, we have seen the standalone, when we discuss standalone, how we change the port numbers and IP address and all that. But right now we're not changing it. So you get to see this HTTP management and the port numbers here. So we've logged in, no servers are running here, but because domain controller, my domain controller process is running, but we cannot deploy applications on domain controller. Where do we deploy applications on the domain controller? We deploy it on the servers, right? Yeah, servers. Vivek, you had something to say to Manoj? Okay. Okay, so this is what we have. So this is we deploy applications and we deploy everything on the servers, but we have only started our host domain controller process. So we don't have we've only started our domain controller process, right? So we don't have any servers, we cannot deploy any applications, and we cannot do anything on the domain controller right now. So let's start a host controller. Let's start a host controller, and in the host controller, what we will do is we have some servers defined in the other host controller machine 2, and we will start up that server. So we already have this host slave open. In host slave, we are going to give the domain master address like this. And one more thing we have to do is we'll change the native port number to 2999 of the other host controller. Why is that? Why is that? Because we don't want any conflict. Since already a domain controller is running with 4 nines, and anyways we'll not be using this native port of this server. We are going to change it to 29. And here we are giving the domain master address. Since it is the domain master is running on localhost 127.0.0.1, so it's given the same port number, the same IP, the 127.0.0.1. Port number is 49. So, and we have two servers defined here. Server 1, which belongs to the main server group, and server 2, which belongs to the other server group. And they have a port offset of 150. So the server in the main server group will start on 8080, the server 1, and server 2 will start on what port number? At an offset of 150. Server 2 will start at an offset of 150, which is 8080 plus 150, which is 8130. So this port number, these servers will be started on. So we have two servers defined in the host controller. Host master can have, on the domain control machine, you can have the servers defined, but right now we don't have it for simplicity. But on host controller, we have some servers defined. So we will see that these servers will get started once the host controller is able to start. So let me so here let me give the domain directory, right? Machine 2 to start the slave server, and in addition to the slave, we can optionally specify the master address from the command line also. Either we can hard code it in the host slave.xml file, or we can specify it in the command line. Both the ways it is possible. So my domain controller process, only my domain controller process is running. Now let me start my uh, slave process, in which I'm going giving the master address, but I don't have to specifically give it here. Why? Because just hold on. Okay, host config. My host config is host slave.xml file, and the main controller is machine 2 /. This is my complete address. I gave the don't give the complete address. I'll give the complete address here. Okay, and this should start my slave server. So I have to give the complete address of the domain. So machine 2 domain. I did not give this domain. Normally you'll give a domain name. I'm going with the default name of the domain, but normally you give a domain name. Host slave, domain base directory, machine 2 domain. This is going to start. So this is starting my host controller and as well as my servers that is running. In addition to this, the host controller should also connect with the domain controller. So here you see, right, registered remote slave host laptop. So the host controller has connected with the domain controller. So this is my host controller and the host controller registered at domain controller. So you see here, right? So in this line, the host controller is registering with the domain controller. If there's a communication problem, if there's a problem with the host controller communicating with the domain controller, the domain controller, the host controller will not be, if the host controller is not able to communicate or connect with the host domain controller, there will be a problem. You'll get some errors, exceptions here. But if you see this line, registered a domain at domain controller, then that means your configuration is fine. Your host controller is able to communicate with the domain controllers. Your host controller is able to communicate with the remote controllers. So that means everything is fine for me. And here on the domain controller, you will see registered remote slave host laptop. And since we already have, since we already have some servers on host controller, so those servers are started by default. So now if you look at our console,
Yeah, hello, Faisal.
there's a disturbance. So now if I look at the console, I am able to see server 1 on this laptop and server 2, right? Earlier, master doesn't have anything, but the host controller is connected. This is the host controller name. I can optionally give a host controller name also, but I've used the default names. So now the host controller is connected and I can see server 1 and I can see server 2. I can see both. Okay, anybody has any questions on this of what we have done? So ideally you'll be running machine 2 on a different machine, on a remote machine.
Yeah, Faisal, I have a question.
Sure, sure.
We can create the servers to console also, right?
Yes, we can create the servers from the console, but your host control, yeah, we can create the servers from the console also.
Then, then which way it takes into the domain or else it takes into the host controller file?
Yeah, it gets into the domain. I mean, if you're creating for a particular host, then it goes into the host.xml file of that particular domain. So if you're creating the servers
Let's
for
say,
machine, yeah,
let's say we have two controllers right here.
yeah, yeah,
One is a master controller and one is some laptop,
yeah, yeah,
specific,
yeah, yeah.
that's a slave controller, right?
It will go into that slave. It will go into that controller. For example, if you want to create on machine 2, it will come here in host slave of machine 2. We will discuss more on servers, but now are you clear with the configuration of the host controller?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how do we configure? How do we do this? So I would request you guys to do this at your end and do these labs we will do
Sure.
later on. But I want you guys to do it. So I'll share the PPT and I'll share the lab material. I'll also share the video how I have done it so that you can refer it and do the lab, and be ready by tomorrow. We'll do the other labs on domain controller tomorrow, and we'll
Sure.
discuss. Also discuss clustering and all that. Not clustering. We'll discuss server groups and all that. Mohammed, are you there? Yusuf, are you there? Okay, there's. I think you look online there, but anyways. So if everybody followed what we did, what a host controller is, what a slave controller is, and what we did. I'll share this lab video. So just go through this video. Yeah, Vivek, you have some questions? Yeah, Vivek. Vivek, you have some questions? So anybody has any question on this? How we do? How do we, create servers in a domain mode? And how do we stop the servers? So now from the domain controller, I'm able to see my slave servers laptop, this one, this machine 2, right? And I can go to runtime and I can see the status. I can do a stop. I can stop the servers from here. If I want to stop server 2, I'll click on stop. I'll do confirm. So I'm able to stop the servers which is running on machine 2, right?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Yeah, we have created the servers in host controller, right?
Yeah. The servers are there on machine 2. The servers
But
are
how come
there
it has been imported into how come it has been imported into the machine one? I mean, domain controller machine.
because the host controller is not imported. The configuration is there. The configuration is there on machine 2 itself. Nothing is imported. It is just that we are able to manage using the domain controller. Domain controller will connect to the host controller, and then the host controller will be able to start and stop.
Okay.
You follow, right?
But the domain controller
Yeah,
also has the host controller, right?
Sorry?
Domain controller also has the host controller of its own.
Domain controller is actually a host controller process, which is acting as a domain controller. It is actually a host
Okay.
controller process, but it is acting as a domain controller. Why is it acting as a domain controller? Because we have this. We have the domain controller as local. That means this guy is actually a domain controller, whereas this guy is actually a host controller. You follow, Vivek?
Right? And the feature of the host controller is to manage the servers, right? To
No,
start and
yeah,
stop
yeah,
the servers.
no, yeah. The feature of a host controller is only to accept requests from the domain controller. The domain controller will send a request to the host controller. Host controller will stop the servers on that box. People from WebLogic and Restia background, it is easy for them. A host controller process is a node manager, and a deployment manager is a domain controller. Done. And the admin server is a domain controller. Done. So it's like that. But a configuration is this.
Faisal,
Uh-huh.
Faisal.
Yeah, Vivek, right? Vivek, tell me.
Yeah, I just if I want to start a server, right?
Hmm.
So can I should use host controller to start the server? No
Yeah,
need
yeah.
of so I can't start from domain, right? Because I should start host controller from domain, and host controller should start the server, right?
Yeah. Host controller will automatically start when you run this. When you run this, start domain, host slave and domain controller. When you run this, then automatically it is going to start your host
So if I
controller. And
if I want to start a server, right? A, B, C servers.
uh-huh.
So I should come to the host controller and then stop the ABC servers, right?
No, you should log into the management console of the domain controller, like the way I have done. This is
Okay.
where my domain controller console, right? And here
Okay.
I will be able to stop the servers. See here from the domain controller console. This is the console, and through the console I'm starting and stopping the servers, right? From the console, I'm able to start and stop the servers. This is what console? Through the domain controller. So how is it starting? The domain controller is sending the request to the host controller on machine 2 on my laptop, right? This is my laptop. And the laptop has got server 1 and server 2, right? You follow it, right?
Yeah.
And my master is basically my domain controller. I don't have any servers here in the domain controller, but I'm connecting to the laptop. Laptop has a host controller running, and that is used to stop the servers. So
Okay.
is this clear to everybody?
Yeah.
Because it's confusing. Can you explain with the group itself was two machines? I mean, when it is available.
Can you please repeat your question? There's a lot of noise actually. Can
I'll
you
just start.
turn off your fan actually, Manoj? I think it's because of, yeah, you can type in chat also. Good, good, good. This is clear. So you have to do the lab. I'll share the PPT, I'll share the command line that I've used, and you have to do it yourself. There's a small bug or I don't know, some issues there. So make sure you give the address here, the master address. So I'll write a document maybe, and then you have to write it that way, start that way. Anyway, so yeah, can you just explain with two physical box? Sure, sure. So basically, you see here, whatever you have, maybe whatever you have, whatever you have in machine 2, this whole configuration, first of all, you need to do EAP installation on machine 2, and you need to copy this machine 2 folder and domain folder on machine 2. This machine 2 will reside actually on a machine 2, not on the local machine. And in the configuration, yeah, we'll come to that. In the configuration of host slave, you'll have to give the actual IP address of the server, actual IP address of the master, where the master is running, and not the local. Let's see if I get time tomorrow, I'll show you. I've got two laptops. If my other laptop starts up, I'll show you how that is done. There's no difference at all. Machine 2 configuration will be copied on the other box, and you have to give the master address. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's see. But try to do at least this part today, and if you've got two machines, try to do it on two machines. What is the difference between 5, 6, and as we have given port number of one server as we are? Okay, great, good question. Why have we given this port number as 2999 for the slave host controller? For the host controller, I have given that. But the reason why we have given that is we did not have two machines. We have only one machine. So already the domain controller is running on 4 nines. It is starting on 4 nines already. So if you have we start the host controller on the same physical box, it also has it will also try to start on 4,999. Although no one will connect to it, it will also try to start on 2,999. That is why we have changed the port number so that there is no port conflict. Yeah, is this clear to everybody? Vivek, I don't allow recording of videos. I'm just giving this video because, so that you can refer it and do the lab. So I'll share this video, but I'll not be recording any more videos. So you have to do the labs. I'll share the steps to do it, and you'll have to do it. And this was agreed before the start of the training. Because if you have the videos, you'll keep it with you and you might not do it. It's better you do the labs, follow what we are doing, make notes, take notes. That'll be useful to you. Okay, anybody has any other question? Why, the question is, why did I change? Why did I change the port number or to native port number of the slave server, the host controller as 2999? That is a very good question. The reason we changed it is because the domain controller is using that port number on that box. Do we have to change the port number? The question is, do we have to change the port number if we are starting the servers on a remote box? The question is for you, Manoj. If I'm doing this configuration on a remote box on machine 2, on an actual machine 2, do I have to change the port number? Do I have to do this change? No. Why is that? Because there's no other process running on that port number. You don't have a domain controller running on that port number. So there's no problem, right? So does everybody understand this? Great, great. Yusuf, you understand this? So it is very, very easy to create a distributed setup in Jboss. Okay, he has left because he has to go. It is very easy to create a distributed setup in Jboss compared to WebLogic and WebSphere. In WebLogic, you have to do pack, unpack, remove, go there, then start the servers. In WebSphere, you have to, add node, do a lot of stuff. But here it's very easy. Create a domain configuration one machine, copy the domain configuration on the other machine, change the host slave and host master accordingly, and done. It's very, very easy in Jboss. But you have to understand what domain controller is, what host controller is, what servers are, how do we stop the servers. So are we good? So if nobody has any more questions, we'll again meet tomorrow, same time. And, try to do these labs. I'll share the PPT and the details with you guys. Okay. Sure. I'll see you guys tomorrow then. Try to do the lab. Otherwise, you will not be able to follow later on. Okay. Thanks for joining, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Vivek, try to do the lab. It will be helpful to you. Yeah. Yeah, Vivek, you have some questions? Okay, okay. The difference between JBoss 5, 6 and 7 version. Okay, cool. In 5, you did not have you did not have these configuration of a slave and a master. In 5, it was just EAP instance that you had to start just one server. There was no concept of domain controller and host controllers, and there was no concept of centralized management. So that is very new in Jboss EAP from Jboss EAP 6, which is similar to Jboss EAP 7. From Jboss EAP 7, they have introduced this. The previous versions, they did not have this concept of a domain controller and a host controller, which is why I say it's a major change from a previous version to from 5 to a 6 EAP and from Jboss Community 6 to a Jboss Community 7. That is what is the difference, a major difference. If you have a previous version, we just extract the file and start the server and then deploy it. So there was no concept of centralized management. There was no concept of domain controller and host controller in the previous version. So is that clear, Vivek? So major difference. You did not have these host controllers and controllers. So the training was also very different. For EAP training is different than a community version training or a 6-foot training. Okay, sure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining. I'll make you the presenter. So you do export Java underscore home equals your Java home, and then you do export path equals dollar Java underscore home / bin colon to dollar PATH. So you have to do this. This will set your environment. Okay. So try to do this particular lab and let's see. Okay. And I'll see you tomorrow.